I believe that nothing in life is unimportant. Every moment can be a beginning. Jon McLeod. Great milestones are often celebrated, dazzling successes, pivotal turning points that change destinies. Yet, in truth, life is woven from fragile threads, a fleeting glance, a sudden spark of thought, a decision that seems utterly insignificant. It is precisely these things we tend to dismiss that quietly shape the orbit of the soul, like a single drop of water patiently carving through solid stone over countless years. When we overlook the present moment, we unknowingly surrender our own power. For every second is a small door where we can choose how to respond, reshape our perception, and rewrite the story of our lives. Those who live with awareness understand that no experience is superfluous. All are precious pieces in the puzzle of growth. In contrast, those who drift through life let time slip away like sand through their fingers, only to awaken one day realizing they have never truly begun. Like a vast painting, every moment is a delicate brushstroke. None are meaningless, only those who lack the patience to behold the full canvas fail to see it. When you shift your perspective, you realize that a beginning does not lie in some distant future, but right here, in this very breath. And when you cherish each moment, you are not merely living, you are actively creating yourself, piece by piece, with a quiet yet immensely powerful energy. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. Albert Einstein. Our emotions and the things outside us, a person to love, an object to possess, are the most fragile things in existence. People change, material things wear away, and when they shift, our minds sway with them like a boat without an anchor in a raging storm. A goal, on the other hand, is a solid inner structure that does not depend on anyone's permission and is not eroded by time like material things. When you tie your life to a goal, you move from the state of waiting to be filled to actively creating. That transformation brings a sense of control and meaning, the two cornerstones of lasting happiness. A clear goal is like a spiritual compass, keeping you from losing your way amid the sea of emotions and upheavals. If you place your happiness in a person, you will live forever in fear of loss. If you place it in material things, you will never feel you have enough. But when you place it in a goal, every small step forward becomes a source of deep fulfillment. Happiness, then, is no longer something you must seek outside yourself. It is the natural result of the journey you are walking. Living happily is not about having what you want, but about knowing clearly where you are going and why you are going there. When the goal becomes the center, people and things become traveling companions, not the final refuge of the soul. That very separation brings a rare kind of freedom, the freedom to live, to choose, and to be happy without clinging. Money and success do not change people. They merely amplify what is already there. Will Smith. When we are lacking, people are forced to restrain themselves, adapt, and hide their darker corners just to survive. But when money and success arrive, they become a giant magnifying glass, enlarging every detail of character, both the light and the shadow. Someone naturally generous becomes even more open-handed when resources abound. Yet a selfish person, once given power and wealth, does not become selfish. They simply no longer have any reason to hide it. This is the phenomenon of reduced social control. When the pressure to survive vanishes, the primal self rises powerfully. Success does not recreate a person. It merely removes the mask that circumstances once forced them to wear. Human nature is like a piece of music, already written. Money and success do not compose a new melody. They only turn up the volume. If the original melody is harmonious, the world will resound with an inspiring symphony. But if it is off-key and jarring, the amplification only makes it more unbearable. What matters is not who I will become when I succeed, but who I truly am right now. Because the things you nurture in silence today, your habits, your values, the way you treat others, are exactly what will be amplified tomorrow. And when the spotlight of success shines on you, you will have nowhere to hide from the truest version of yourself. Don't be afraid of failure. It is not the end of the world, and in many ways, it is the first step to learning something and becoming better. Jon Hamm. We do not truly fear failure. We fear feeling small. We fear judgmental eyes. We fear confronting our own limits. Yet, it is precisely in that moment of impact that the mind truly awakens, just as muscles only grow when stretched to the point of pain. Failure is the most raw and honest feedback. It does not flatter or soothe. It forces us to look directly at our blind spots. Those who avoid failure are actually avoiding the process of self-awareness. In contrast, those who dare to step into failure are willing to dismantle their old self and rebuild a more accurate and stronger version. Failure, in that sense, is not an ending, but a laboratory where every mistake becomes precious data. The journey of life is like walking across a rough plain. If you have never stumbled, it does not mean you are skilled. It may simply mean you have not gone far enough. Each fall is a time when the nervous system learns to adjust. Each mistake is a time when the map of the mind is updated. Without failure, progress is only an illusion. Instead of seeing failure as an enemy, look at it as a harsh but fair teacher. It does not come to destroy you, but to strip away the fragile illusions you cling to. And when you change your perspective, you will realize what is truly frightening is not failure, but living an entire life without ever daring to try, without ever daring to be wrong, and therefore, without ever truly growing. The secret of a successful life is to find your mission and then fulfill it. Henry Ford. A mission is not something handed to you ready-made. It is something unearthed from the layers of experience, values, and inner longing. It is not loud or showy, but exists like a quiet inner call. Only those quiet enough can hear it. Living without a mission is like existing in a state of controlled drifting. You stay busy, you keep moving, but you lack a central axis of meaning to guide you. This creates a vague emptiness, a kind of fatigue that does not come from doing too much, but from doing things that are not truly connected to who you are. In contrast, when you discover your mission, it is as if you have found an inner current. Every action, no matter how small, carries meaning. Every difficulty, no matter how great, becomes part of the journey rather than a pointless obstacle. But discovering your mission is only half the path. The rest and the hardest part is carrying it out. This is where many people stop, because action demands discipline, perseverance, and the willingness to face failure. A mission is not a dream to admire from afar, but a commitment to live with every single day. It is like choosing a mountain to climb. The meaning lies not in reaching the summit, but in continuing to take the next step, even when the path is steep and strewn with stones. Life is like an arrow. Without a target, it flies aimlessly, wasting energy and leaving no mark. But once you identify your mission, you have drawn back the bowstring of willpower. And when you act, you are not merely moving forward, you are living a life with direction, with depth, and above all, with real meaning. I think curiosity about life, in all its aspects, is still the secret of great creative people. Leo Burnett. A profound insight into the driving force behind creative intelligence. Curiosity, at its core, is an open state of mind, the refusal to live within fixed patterns. Curious people do not accept the world as it is. They constantly ask questions, constantly turn reality inside out, much like a child dismantling a clock just to see how time actually works. Curiosity activates the cycle of discovery, learning, and restructuring perception. Every question is a crack in the old system of beliefs, allowing the light of new possibilities to slip through. That is why the greatest creative minds are not necessarily the smartest, but those who never stop wondering. They view the familiar with unfamiliar eyes, and thereby turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. Think of a room. If you stop being curious, that room gradually seals shut, the air grows stale, and everything inside begins to age. But when curiosity is present, you keep opening windows to let in fresh air, new light, and ideas never thought before. Creativity then ceases to be a rare, genius moment and becomes the natural outcome of a mind that is always in motion. Curiosity not only enriches the intellect, but deepens the experience of living. When you are truly curious, you no longer skim the surface of life. You begin to observe, to feel, and to connect with the world on many more levels. And it is precisely in that refined attention that you become not only more creative, you become more alive in a complete and energy-filled way. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Soren Kierkegaard. We grow up believing that if we think hard enough and analyze deeply enough, we can control life. Yet, the more we try to solve it, the more confused we become, because life does not operate according to the linear logic of an equation, but according to the complex rhythm of emotions, changes, and things that cannot be predicted. Treating life as a problem keeps us in a state of constant underlying tension. We keep searching for the right answer, afraid of being wrong, afraid of veering off course, afraid of losing control. But that very need for control robs us of the ability to truly feel. You cannot be fully alive and at the same time stand outside, analyzing every moment like a detached observer. It is like trying to understand a piece of music with formulas. You miss the melody that is actually playing. When you see life as a reality to be experienced, you shift from the state of control to the state of presence. You allow yourself to feel joy without needing a reason, to accept sorrow without rushing to chase it away. Each moment becomes a flow, not a puzzle. And in that flow, you do not need to have all the answers. You only need the courage to live with the questions. If life is a labyrinth, then you are not the person standing above looking for the fastest way out, but the one walking inside, touching every wall, feeling every turn. Meaning lies not in escaping, but in the journey you have traveled. Instead of asking, "How do I solve life?" perhaps the deeper question is, "Have I truly lived it yet?" And when you begin to experience rather than control, life is no longer a burden to be untangled. It becomes a vibrant journey where every moment holds its own inherent value. Everything negative pressure, challenges, is an opportunity for me to rise. Bryant. A profound reprogramming of the mind at the deepest level. In the same situation, the weak see a burden, while the mature see momentum. Pressure, after all, is not the enemy. It is like weight placed on muscle. That very heaviness forces us to adapt, to grow stronger, or to break. And the choice lies in how we interpret it. A key mechanism: cognitive reframing. When you call a challenge an opportunity, you do not change its nature. You change your position in relation to it. You are no longer a victim pushed by circumstances, but someone who actively harnesses them. That shift creates inner energy, a form of motivation that does not depend on external ease. Every difficulty is like a forge. If you resist the heat and pressure, you only feel burned. But if you step inside willingly, you will be tempered. Iron does not become steel in comfort. Neither does a person. The strongest versions of yourself are not born from ease, but from the moments when you are forced to surpass your own limits. The more you avoid the negative, the more fragile you become in its presence. But when you face it and interpret it as an opportunity, you gradually build psychological immunity. Pressure no longer breaks you. It becomes a signal that you are entering a zone of growth. You choose to see it as a wall blocking your path, or as a step lifting you higher. And when you truly believe that every challenge can be transformed, you do not merely overcome it, you use it to rebirth yourself, stronger and more profound each time. You will never learn much by only listening to yourself speak. George Clooney. We think that expressing ourselves is growth, when, in reality, we are merely repeating what is already there. When we talk too much, we operate inside a closed loop of perception. Thoughts give birth to words, and words reinforce those very thoughts. No collision, no challenge, no newness, and a mind that is never challenged will gradually stagnate, no matter how noisy it appears on the outside. Listening to others is the act of expanding the boundaries of the self. It forces us to temporarily lower the ego and accept that the world does not revolve around our own frame of reference. When you truly listen, you do not merely receive information, you come into contact with different thought structures, experiences you have never lived, perspectives that can shake old beliefs. It is that very unsettling quality that becomes fertile ground for learning. Think of a room again. If you only speak, you are listening to the echo of your own voice bouncing off familiar walls. But when you listen, you open the door and let other sounds flood in, sometimes chaotic, sometimes uncomfortable, but always carrying the power to renew the space inside. Growth, therefore, does not come from proving you are right, but from being flexible enough to doubt yourself. The more certain we are of ourselves, the more easily we close ourselves off. Yet truly mature people possess a form of intellectual humility. They understand that every conversation is a chance to learn, not to win. And when you shift from the need to be heard to the ability to know how to listen, you do not merely accumulate knowledge, you are restructuring yourself, becoming deeper and more open through every interaction. The best portion of a good man's life is his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. Wordsworth. In a world that always measures by achievements and attention, quiet acts of goodness are like underground streams, unseen by anyone, yet nourishing an entire inner landscape. When someone does good without needing recognition, they are freeing themselves from the need for external validation, a need that so easily makes people dependent and unsteady. At that point, an act of kindness is no longer an emotional transaction, giving in order to feel good about oneself, but the natural expression of an inner abundance. It is when the ego no longer needs to display itself, but quietly reveals itself through the way we treat the world. Every small act of kindness is like a seed sown into soil that no one sees. You do not stand there waiting for it to sprout, nor do you measure how big it grows. Yet it is precisely that lack of attachment that creates a rare kind of freedom. You do good not to become someone, but simply because it is true to your nature. And paradoxically, these small, nameless things possess the most enduring power to spread, because they are not limited by ego or expectations. A lifetime, when viewed from the outside, may be judged by its grand milestones. But when viewed from within, where only you and the truth of yourself exist, real value lies in the moments you chose kindness when no one was watching, love when no response was required. Those are not great things in the usual sense, yet they create the true depth of a human being. And perhaps, when everything else fades, what remains is not what you achieved, but what you quietly gave away.